When I started the channel at the beginning of last year, I said that you need 3 things for your solo games: an oracle, your favorite rule system, meaning an RPG, and a set of random tables. Well, in this video, I am going to drill down on that third part of our toolset. What are random tables? Which types are there? Which are the best examples, in my opinion, of each type? How can we incorporate them into our games? And one thing that I hardly see discussed, their storage and usage, since something that cannot be easily accessed or handled cannot be used, no matter its quality. Hello and welcome to RPG Tips again. Let's dive right in. Random tables, or generators, are sets of thematic results that usually answer one single purpose. For instance, here we have a very simple random table to know the reaction of an NPC to a question. But this is a very ad hoc, simplistic definition that I've just created. As we are going to see, there's a wide diversity of them, and I'll probably going to miss a lot. So don't hesitate in adding more examples in the comments below. To actually understand their diversity, let's see which types of random tables there are. Since it's the least popular type, I think, I'm going to cover visual generators first. Visual generators are collections of images or symbols that are supposed to elicit a reaction from the viewer. Definitely, the most popular visual generator is Rory's Story Cubes, a collection of dice with images instead of numbers on each of their faces that can help in answering any kind of question. You roll a number of them, I usually roll 3 when I use them, and you weave an answer based on the combination of images. As a nice detail, Rory's Story Cubes were created by Rory Bracebuckle, which is a member of the solo community. He was also the author of the Perilous Intersection supplement that I also mentioned in my Resources and Tools video as a story framework tool for our solo games. Another product that also contains visual generators is the Game Master's Apprentice, a brilliant tool that I've previously mentioned in my Resources and Tools video, and that will come up later in this one too. It specifically has sets of runes and abstract symbols that you can ascribe meaning to in order to customize them to your specific games. In that sense, they require a bit of work on your part first, but they can be quite powerful. So, pros and cons of visual generators. First of all, I'd say that it's a matter of personal taste, and most people combine both visual and textual random tables, but that aside, a pro is that they can definitely be used to answer any kind of question. So you can travel with just your Game Master's Apprentice deck or your Story Cubes and have a complete game with them. But a con is that some people are just not that visual and they aren't able to imagine vivid results with them. I'm actually one of them. I definitely prefer words, but I've had very good experiences with the Story Cubes just traveling on the metro or something like that, playing with the app on my phone. Okay, so we've just covered visual generators. Let's go to the most popular type, textual, words or sentences. I'd say that this type can also be divided in 3 different types that I'm going to treat separately. The first type is the abstract tables. Those that are supposed to answer extremely broad questions, if any. In this domain, we can find the description and action tables from the Mythic GME, the verbs collection from the Solo Adventurer's Toolbook and Solo Investigator's Handbook, several of Ironsworn's tables, the adjectives and motivations from Scarlet Heroes, or the verb plus adjective plus noun combination of the Game Master's Apprentice. I'd say that these tables are the skeleton of our toolset. They are the ones that we fall back to when we don't have an appropriate generator or we just want a quick answer. Given this, getting familiar with their usage and training your improv muscle to generate flavorful results from these is not just a useful skill for your solo games, but almost a prerequisite to have games with enough momentum and flow, and will avoid you getting burnt out searching for detailed generators for everything. Apart from the ones that I've just mentioned, I think that another abstract table that deserves a lot of praise is the detail check from Mythic Variations 2. What it does is, it ties the result to either an element of your story, an NPC or a threat or your PC, or it ties it to the emotion that the result provokes in your PC, something like fear or anger. In that sense, I find that in my games, the detail check is a very powerful and useful abstract table. Is usually easier to interpret than just a collection of two random words. Personally, in my games, no matter in the genre in which I am or whatever game I'm using, the core of my abstract tables is always composed of the action and description tables from the Mythic GME and the detail check from the Mythic GME, well, variations too. Though I must admit that I've also seen very good results with the verbs table from the Solo Adventurer's Handbook. The second type of random tables is the specific ones. Those that answer a concrete question, like what do I find when I loot the monster's treasure, or what are the domains of the god of the temple that I've just found. This is the most popular category of random tables by far. Drive-Thru RPG is full of them, there are entire subreddits devoted to them, and you can find tables for almost anything you want. The question is, when should I use a specific table instead of my abstract ones? I'd say that your game is going to benefit from a specific table in two scenarios. Number one, when it generates results for things that are going to appear consistently, but not often enough that results are going to be repeated, or when repetition doesn't matter. I'd say, for instance, that terrain and encounter generators fall in this situation. And number two, when you want to generate something that your abstract table of choice is not good at generating. This is going to be a matter of personal experience for you. You're going to have to play and see when your abstract tables don't give you a good enough result. For me specifically, I found that both physical descriptions of NPCs and combat actions are not that well covered just with the abstract tables that I previously mentioned. So I use a homebrew NPC appearance generator that I did some time ago, and for combat actions, well, that's the next textual type, so we'll see it in a minute. Now, as I said, there's a myriad of products on this category, so take my recommendations on this area with a grain of salt, and knowing my preferences. I'm mostly a fantasy guy, so I'm going to talk about fantasy stuff. Having said that, I'm going to recommend 2 books, and basically the whole range of one specific author. Of course, you will be able to find links of everything in the description, and bonus, they are affiliated links, so if you buy my favorite books, I get a bit of money that I can spend to buy more cool things to recommend you, so we all win. The first book is The Tome of Adventure Design by Frog God Games. This book is insane. It's 350 pages of anything you can imagine about a fantasy world. If you're going to buy one product of random tables, just buy this one. Really, I mean, look it up. Heads up though, it's pretty expensive even for a PDF. This book is divided in 4 sections, a general one in which you get types of quests and adventures, another for designing monsters from scratch, another 120 pages just for generating dungeons, and lastly 40 pages of just non-dungeon adventure design. It's just massive. I mean, if you like random tables, you owe it to yourself to look this up. The second book I personally often use is called Ultimate Toolbox, and honestly, it follows the same approach as the Tome of Adventure Design. Tables for everything and anything. Even though it's 405 pages, I'd say that it has less content than the Tome of Adventure Design, since the font here is quite larger. Apart from that, the main difference I find between them is their focus and organization. Ultimate Toolbox takes a world-building approach for the chapters, so you'll find sections for characters, for the world, for civilizations, for sea adventures, for dungeons, for magic, and a section to generate plots. I've had very good results with this book too, so even though I feel that the Tome of Adventure Design is the better product, this one is also very good and very recommended. Lastly, I'm going to cheat, kind of, because instead of recommending one product, I'm going to recommend a whole author's line of products. Kevin Crawford from Nomina Games is my favorite RPG author and, in my opinion, a godsend for GMs and solo players. He produces games based on 2 premises: old school D&D rules, plus sets of generic tools and tables to help GMs prepare games as fast as possible. So even if you hate D&D, you can buy his books, and 80% of the text will still be useful. And the same situation applies for solo gaming. Kevin has games for lots of genres and settings. Scarlet Heroes is most fitting for a solo audience, since it has a complete framework to play solo, not only random tables. But there's also Stars Without Number, his sci-fi game with generators for lots of sci-fi stuff. Godbound with generators for ruins, dungeons, and courts, governments. Worlds of God with generators for monasteries and challenges in the England of the Dark Ages. Silent Legions that allows you to create your own Cthulhu mythos entities, and basically that's just the tip of the iceberg. Honestly, he's a luminary in the RPG scene, and well, some of his games are free too, so there's really no excuse not to check them out. So if I said that abstract tables can be considered a skeleton of our toolset, in order to continue this metaphor, specific tables could be the skin. Not because it makes a lot of sense, but because it allows me to introduce one last elusive type of table, which is in the middle, between both, like the muscles. A table that I call the hybrid type. These are abstract tables that are tailored for more specific situations than normal. Thus, they combine the best of both worlds. The unlimited potential of the combinatorial results of abstract tables, plus the focus of specific tables. When I found tables of this type, they've very quickly become staples of my toolset. In fact, I'd say that most of us already know about a product that contains hybrid tables. UNE, the Universal NPC Emulator by Conjecture Games. In fact, I'd say that most of Conjecture Games' line is composed of hybrid tables. They've got another supplement called Bold, the Book of Legends and Deeds, that is extremely useful in generating backstories and, in general, answering the question, what happened? Most recently, Sean Tompkin has given us several of these hybrid tables in Ironsworn Delve. He's got tables for combat actions, traps, and delve features or rooms in a dungeon or point crawl. I can personally vouch for the quality, and they've stood the test. Yesterday, I GM'd for my D&D group, and I used the delve features table to generate a haunted mine of unnatural darkness and insects as the players were advancing, on the fly, with no preparation, and it went brilliant. The beauty of the hybrid tables is that since they are not completely specific, they can be nudged or adapted to the situation you have in your game, while still giving you results that are so focused that it is very easy to generate flavorful results from them. As a last note in the hybrid tables part, I think that you cannot do better for encounter tables than with the Perilous Wilds. It is a very complex table that requires a lot of cross-referencing to other tables, but I use it constantly to spice up travel because, as the others, it's focused enough to help me create, but not too specific that it can run out of original results quickly. While they are not random tables per se, I don't want to skip the opportunity to talk about a tool that, in my opinion, is one of the best world-building tools ever, also for solo gaming. The concept of tags for locations. Kevin Crawford, that I previously mentioned, invented it as far as I know, and makes heavy usage of them in his books. They are a combination of a title or descriptive sentence, a short blurb that elaborates the concept, and then a collection of possible enemies, possible friends, locations, things, plots, and twists that can happen in that plot. So, populating your world, which is something I extremely recommend before actually starting your game, and I may expand on in the future in another video, is extremely easy because it's just a matter of rolling on several tag random tables. You can even combine them to generate even more possible situations, rolling 2 tags at the same time and combining them. So that was my very broad division of types and personal recommendations. I don't know about you, but I've got a collection of resources and random tables in general that is, larger than I would admit to people that are not in the hobby. So it can be slightly hard to focus my attention when I'm actually gaming, to either find a random table that will be useful for that game, or even decide which product to use. Since this is a matter of personal organization and tastes, I don't have a panacea that's going to solve that analysis paralysis, but I can give you some advice that may help you when you're building your resource toolbox for your game. First, the first thing I would do is to build a set of abstract tables as a core. You probably already have this. Then I would incorporate most of the hybrid tables I like if they fit the theme of my game. But then the specific tables are the problem. While it's going to be hard to predict what you're going to find in your games, I think it's fairly simple to identify common situations that you will most probably find when you play. Dialogues, NPC descriptions, terrain, weather, encounters, quests. So you can very easily build a table of pairs with each situation associated with a specific generator. When you don't have one, well, then it's a good moment to search for one. Once you've settled for it, there's no more indecision. But well, you may say, that's easy. Those situations are expected to happen. What about more, specific situations? Again, prediction is hard, but there's one tool that may help us here. If you've seen my previous video on themes and forecasting, you may have thought about the themes of your game. If your game contains as a theme, the evil empire's tendrils can be found everywhere. You may look for, or even write a table of, ways in which the evil empire has affected a settlement. By deciding which kind of game you want to play, you can envision the general specifics of it, which can point you to which kinds of more focused generators you will need. It's not a perfect solution, but it may be helpful. Well, we've reached the last part of the video now, which addresses your probable reaction when you go to get the Tome of Adventure Design, find that it contains literally hundreds of random tables, and then get stuck thinking, well, yeah, this is nice, but how do I use this? Actually, there are several options to do so. The first one, and in my opinion the least usable, is to just have the printed books themselves. They look nice, and I won't shame anyone for having a book collection, but they are not that handy when you're in the middle of gaming. At least for me, my flow can get interrupted if I spend too much time looking for a result in a physical book. Still in the physical part of things, I think there are two options that are better. The first one is to use card generators. In this case, the Game Master's Apprentice is king, being almost a self-sufficient solution for playing on the go. Additionally, using cards gives you another dimension to use, the spatial one. You can play with location cards, for instance, to lay out a village or wilderness very quickly. But that still doesn't address how to use something like the Tome of Adventure Design. The sad truth is that there is no easy option, but if you prefer to have things on paper, printing a set of the tables that you think you'll use and keeping them in a binder is probably the best option. In fact, even though I am mostly a digital-only player, recently I've populated my Arcana note with a lot of random tables, but there's a catch. They are Kevin Crawford's stack system, the one I mentioned previously. They are not easily portable to a digital option, and since they come from several different sources, it's a nice way to have them all together. On the digital side, I've previously mentioned different options to use random tables, such as AdventureSmith, a very nice app for Android, but that only contains a limited set of tables. So what options does one have if you want to use your favorite random tables in an accessible, easy, digital way? The answer is, it depends. More specifically, it depends on your programming skills. Now, don't get scared. Almost none of the options I'm going to lay out require significant programming skills, but I know that people can get scared of it sometimes. If you're a person that avoids programming like the plague, your best option is to use an online option like Perchance or Chartopia. If you want a simple solution that still allows you to create complex tables with interdependencies, Inspiration Pad Pro is your best option, only for Windows. If you have rudimentary knowledge of JavaScript or Python, you can just write your generators yourself and use them in apps such as Drafts for Mac, iOS, and iPadOS, or Editorial for iOS and iPadOS. I'm not familiar with anything equivalent in Android, but I'm sure someone will propose it in the comments. In my case, as I showed in the How I Play My Games video, I have an extensive collection of random tables ported to a terminal, a console in which I can write the name of the table I want and I get its results. I find it much more comfortable for me because I am used to it, but honestly, for most people, I find that Inspiration Pad Pro is the best compromise. I was planning on maybe doing some examples, but I think this video is going to be long enough as it is. To summarize the ideas that I've detailed, a core of abstract tables will make your solo games flow smoothly. Good hybrid tables are gems that will probably add something unique to your games. Specific tables can be extremely useful, but they need to be tamed. And how to do so, no matter if it is in a physical binder or in a software solution, it's going to depend on what you like. And that's all, that's the video. I hope it wasn't too much of an academic diversion and that you found something useful here. Nevertheless, whether you think it sucked or you liked it, I'll be very happy to see you if you drop by the Mythic GME Discord server, where we're now around 400 members discussing solo RPGs daily. We are a very nice community. As always, I hope you had fun, I hope you learned something, and I hope to see you again in the next video. Bye bye.